The digestive system.
The digestive system performs many functions like taking in food, breaking food down to molecular-sized pieces, absorbing those molecules into the body, and eliminating waste products.
The digestive system has many components. The two components it has are the alimentary canal, which is also known as the GI tract, which include mouth, pharynx, intestines, etc., and the accessory digestive organs, which include teeth, tongue, salivary glands, etc.
The digestive system performs many processes. Ingestion is moving food or drinks into the mouth. Propulsion is moving food and swallowing it. Mechanical digestion is chewing food, mixing it with saliva, turning food into the stomach. Segmentation is which rhythmic local contractions occur of the small intestines. Forced chemical digestion is breaking down of complex food molecules into basic components. An example is proteins to amino acids. Absorption is when competent passes through mucosa or GI tract into bloodstream. Compaction is the formation of feces. And defaction is the expulsion of feces.
The digestive system has many general functions. The mouth, which moistens with saliva and food is chewed. Lips keep food in between teeth. Cheeks help with speech. Uvula closes when swallows to close off the nasopharynx. The tongue forms bolus of food to push back for further digestion. Other structures of the tongue include the lingual frenulum, which attaches the tongue to the bottom of the mouth. The frilliform papillary makes the tongue rough. The fungiform papillary have taste buds. Saliva helps with cleaning of the mouth, dissolves chemical in food. Some enzymes help break down food. Teeth, mastication of food, form bolus. This is a picture of teeth. Teeth include canine, incisors, premolars, and molars. There's 32 teeth in adults. The incisors are the front two teeth that cut food. Canine are the vampire teeth next to incisors, which pierce and tear food, cutting meat. Premolars and molars, located back of the mouth, used for grinding food.
Other parts of the teeth include gingivae, which are the gums that help hold the teeth in the alveoli, crowns, which is the exposed part of the tooth, the root, which is the part of the tooth embedded in the bone, the neck, which is located in between the tooth, pulp cavity, which is the hollow area in the tooth, contains pulp, root canal, which is the passageway from the pulp cavity to the apical foramen, which is where blood vessels and nerves enter. Clinical problems of the teeth include cavities or dental caries caused by bacteria growing in the plaque, tartar, which is calcus or classified plaque, gingivitis, which is pockets of infection in the gums, and periodontal disease, which is bone damage caused by bacteria in the bone. It can lead to bone loss.
Histology of the alimentary canal. Mucosis is the first layer, which is also known as mucous membrane, which contains different structures known as mucosa epithelial, made up of simple columnar epithelial of goblet cells, which make mucus, which secrete hormones and enzymes. Second structure is the laminar proprietary, which is made up of alveolar connective tissues and contains lymph nodes, also known as Preyer's patch. Third structure, mucularis, which is thin layer of smooth muscle, which forms folds. Three structures include secreting mucus, absorbing digestive material, and protects against affection. Second layer, called submucosa, is where you find blood vessels and nerves and is made up of alveoli connective tissue. The third layer, muscularis externa, contains an inner and outer layer. The inner layer is the circular layer, and the outer layer is the longitudinal layer. This layer function includes mixing and moving food. These processes known as segmentation. Fourth layer, known as serosa, made up of alveoli connective tissue covered with simple squamous epithelial. This layer function is for secreting serosa, or serosus fluid.
Histology and types of saliva glands. Serosa cells secrete water. Mucus cells produce mucus. Extrinsic include the parotid gland, the submandibular gland, and the sublingual gland. Intrinsic glands include the buccal glands. The pharynx and the esophagus. The pharynx breaks down into the oropharynx and laryngopharynx. Deglutition, which is swallowing, breaks into two different phases. The first phase is known as the buccal phase, which is where the tongue pushes the bolus of food back into the oropharynx. The second phase is known as the pharyngeal esophageal phase, where the tongue blocks the mouth, the soft palate closes off the nasopharynx, the epiglottis covers the glottis, and the food moves into the esophagus, which is involuntary. The esophagus is the tube that connects the mouth to the stomach. It contains the esophageal hiatus, which is the hole in the diaphragm where the esophagus goes through, the cardiac orifice, where the esophagus connects to the stomach, the cardiac sphincter, which stays closed to keep food in the stomach, and stomach contents in the stomach, not in the esophagus. Special features of the esophagus include the longitudinal folds that allow for stretching as food moves down the esophagus, the muscularis externa, which is composition of different muscles, containing the top 1/3 as skeletal muscle, the middle third as skeletal and smooth muscle, and the last third as smooth muscle. The adventitia, which is the outer layer of the esophagus, not found in the cavity.
This is just a picture of the pharynx and the esophagus. Stomach functions: temporary storage, emphatic digestion, and absorption. Gross anatomy for the stomach has a greater and lesser curvature. The rugae, which folds for expansion, the cardiac region located near the heart entranceway to the stomach, the fundus, which is the dome-shaped upper part, the body is the middle part, the pyloric is the end of the stomach containing the pyloric atrium, the pyloric canal, the pylorus, and the pyloric sphincter. The pyloric sphincter, which opens and closes and regulates passageway of material from the stomach to small intestine, and mesenteries, which attaches stomach to other organs. Also, the stomach has 3 layers called longitudinal, circular, and oblique. Histology of the stomach. The stomach is lined with mucus-producing cells. It contains gastric pits, which are wells or depressions in walls of stomach that lead to gastric glands, which produce gastric juice, which is made up of hydrochloric acid and pepsin. It contains parietal cells, which make intrinsic factor, or vitamin B12, and also makes hydrochloric acid. It allows and contains chief cells, which make pepsinogen, which further turns into pepsin when you put into hydrochloric acid. Enter endocrine cells, which are gut endocrine cells that make hormones to the GI tract, and mucous neck cells, which make mucus. Regulation of the stomach. The direct controls include the parasympathetic controls, which is the vagus long nerve that causes a reflex and increase in digestive activity, the sympathetic control, which is the celiac plexus and causes a decrease in digestive activity. Regulation of the stomach is also done by indirect controls, which are done by hormones. The 3 hormones are gastrin, secretin, and CCK. Gastrin is produced by G cells in the stomach. It targets the stomach and the small intestines. Secretin is produced in the duodenum of the small intestines. It targets the liver, pancreas, and stomach. CCK is produced in the duodenum of the small intestines and targets pancreas, gallbladder, and sphincter of Oddi. The phases of the gastrin secretion. First phase is celiac phase, which increases HCI, enzymes, and mucus. The second phase is gastric phase, which stretches receptors, increases gastric juice secretion, chemicals, which increase HCl and pepsinogen. And the third and last phase is intestinal phase, excitatory, enhances gastric gland secretion, which inhibitories, and enterogastric reflex, which releases CCK. Gastric motility and emptying. It is done by the response to the stomach filling, which is from the food stretching the stomach, and it stretches to accommodate food entering. The stomach contains plastic smooth muscle that is stretchable. Relaxation of the stomach musculature. The receptive relaxation is where the vagus nerve sees food and makes the stomach stretch. An adaptive relaxation is the actual physical stretching.
Gastric contractile activity includes pacemaker cells, which set basic electrical rhythm, about 3 contractions per minute. It is altered by hormones and nerves. Clinical problems include emesis, which is throwing up and vomiting caused by bacteria and alcohol, gastritis, which is inflammation of the stomach wall, and gastric ulcers, which is erosions in the stomach wall caused by heliochloric pyloric.
The small intestine functions: mechanical and chemical digestion. Mechanical is segmentation. Chemical is enzymes from liver and pancreas. Most nutrition's absorption and proportion. Gross anatomy is the pilicae circulars, which are therefore increasing the surface area. Also circular folds in the small intestine walls. Mesentery proper connects small intestine to posterior abdominal wall. Blood vessels: superior mesenteric artery is feeding, veins is draining. Subdivisions of the small intestine, which is the duodenum, Bernner's gland, which is submucosal glands, duodenum ampulla, which is also known as hepatic pancreatic ampulla, hepatic pancreatic sphincter, which is also known as sphincter of Odine, and the enteron of endocrine glands, secretin and CCK are the hormones. The duodenum is the first part of the small intestine, is about 10 inches long. It breaks into Bernner's gland, which produces mucus to solidified acid chyme. The hepatic pancreatic ampulla breaks down into a major duodenum papillae. The duodenum is empties, which is also 8 feet long. The ileum is the long end, which is about 10 to 12 feet, and has Pryor's patch, which is aggravate lymphatic nodes, and also has ileocecal valve.
The large intestine's functions include absorbing water, forming feces, and mostly storage. The structures include the tennae coli, which are bands of smooth muscle that cause large intestines to bundle up and form haustra. Epiglottic appendages are fat lobes that hang off the large intestines. Verniform appendix is the word thing hanging off the large intestines. Mesocolons are sheets attached to the mesentery wall. The subdivisions break down into the cecum, the colon, the rectum, the anorectum canal, the rectal valves, and the anal canal. The cecum is the pouch at the beginning of the large intestines. The ileocecal valve moves food from the valve to the cecum. The rectum has 3 folds: the anorectic canal, the rectal valves, and the anal canal, which further break into the internal and external sphincter. The internal is involuntary, and the external is voluntary, which has the feces in the rectum.
The liver has 3 functions: metabolic regulation, hematological regulation, and bile synthesis. Also has 4 lobes, known as the right, left, caudate, and quadrate. The falciform ligament separates the left and right. The round ligament, also known as the ligamentum teres, is the bottom of the falciform ligament. The hilum, where the hepatic portal vein and artery enters liver. And the right and left hepatic ducts break down into the common hepatic ducts and the common bile ducts. Blood flow through the liver. Blood from the hepatic artery and portal vein flow from the triad valve through the sinusoids into central vein through the hepatic veins and into inferior vena cava.
The gallbladder functions is for storing and concentrated bile. It breaks into the cystic duct, which connects the gallbladder to the common bile duct, and the sphincter of Oddi, which regulates the flow of bile, and pancreatic juice into the small intestines and large intestines. The pancreas functions include endocrine and exocrine functions. The endocrine functions use the alpha glucagon, beta to insulin, and delta to somatostatin. Exocrine include the pancreatic juice. The structures include the head, tail, main pancreatic duct, and accessory pancreatic duct.